Hurricane Nate made landfall Saturday night at the mouth of the Mississippi River.
Hurricane Nate slamming into the seawall here.
This is the worst hurricane that has impacted Mississippi since Hurricane Katrina.
Breaking tonight, a note found in the hotel room of Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock.
It was a mathematical calculation so the killer could murder as many people as possible.
The president tweeted there's only one thing that's going to work with North Korea.
This should have been handled 25 years ago. Should have been handled 10 years ago. I was handed a mess.
If we could make a deal, at least on a temporary basis, because Obamacare is exploding. It's gone.
I'm thrilled y'all are here, and just know that we love you. Helping vets transition from military life to civilian life is going to be a huge contribution to the country.
I'm Jason Aldean. When America is at its best, our bond and our spirit, it's unbreakable.
Are back.
Yeah, we got Dean Cain back on the couch with us.
Very happy. Thank you.
Decided to return.
I was forced into it.
Yes.
No, you weren't. I was not, but I'm very happy to be here. It's wonderful.
We're thrilled to have you and Ed Henry. It's always good to have you on.
The amazing Ed Henry.
The amazing. Is that what you've heard about him?
I've heard that, but we'll find out.
To get that from the Man of Steel, that's pretty cool. Wow.
It's very cool. Well, good morning to all of you. Happy Sunday morning. We do want to get right to a Fox News alert. Nate is now downgraded to a tropical storm, but not before making landfall twice as a Category 1 hurricane overnight.
Mississippi coast battling powerful storm surge and flooding.
The effects are also being felt in Alabama. That's where we find our own Rick Hall, who's live in Mobile. Good morning, Rick.
Good morning, Ed, Abby, and Dean. This is Water Street in downtown Mobile, which is obviously underwater. I'm told that this does flood on occasion, but this is somewhat unusual. You see a lot of water outside the Arthur Outlaw Mobile conventions, and then to our right, we can show you some firefighters with Mobile Fire and Rescue who are trying to help somebody who's in a car that's stuck down there. Apparently, the person in that vehicle doesn't want to get out. He drove into the high waters, as officials were telling people not to do. And now I'm not sure what he wants. I talked to the firefighters, and they don't seem to understand why this guy won't just get out of the car. Maybe he's waiting on a tow truck. We just don't know. But as you can see, there's a lot of water in the lowest lying areas of Mobile. But this state was spared the worst of the storm. It actually hit in Biloxi and Gulfport, Mississippi, just after midnight. That was the second landfall. The first landfall was in southeast Louisiana, Plaquemines Parish, late Saturday afternoon, early evening, and then again it hit on the Gulf Coast, where Mississippi had not been hit by a hurricane making landfall in the state since Katrina in 2005. It came in as a Cat 1, 85, 90-mile-an-hour winds, brought storm surges up to 10 feet. A lot of the hotels and casinos along the Gulf Coast in Mississippi took on water. Ground floors, parking garages were in several feet of water. Many of those hotels evacuated ahead of the storm, as did some low-lying areas around Alabama. There are tens of thousands of people without power now along the Mississippi coast, including some 46,000 customers in Mobile and the surrounding areas, but it's not. It doesn't appear to be as bad as the officials had once feared. So a lot of water downtown, but the trees are mostly intact, and buildings don't seem to be that badly damaged. So this was not as bad a storm as some in Alabama had feared, guys.
Rick, have you talked to anyone there? Have most of the people decided to stay back and just weather out the storm? What are people telling you there?
Well, you know, they knew it was a Cat 1, maybe a Cat 2 when it was coming in, but it wound up being a Cat 1. So we didn't hear a lot about evacuation. Some people did move to higher ground, but at least here in Alabama, most people just hunkered down and stayed, sheltered in place, as was the advice of officials. And again, really the places that we're seeing that are bad so far are the low-lying areas like Water Street here in downtown Mobile.
All right, thank you so much, Rick.
Yeah, that looked like, as weak as it seems, it doesn't look that weak.
No.
It's a lot less than the other two storms have been. We need to find out more, so we're going over to Rick Reichmuhl, right? I messed him up 3 times yesterday, and it's Richmith. It's all the different names.
So Rick told us yesterday that his own family members all pronounce his last name different ways, so he's not very critical when you say it wrong.
I'm not offended at all, but I like, Dean, how you were like, your name's easy. It's just Reichmuhl.
Or Rich Myth, or something like that. It's Rick.
Rick, that's perfect. I'll take that. Yeah, so, you know, not all storms are the same. Obviously, we've seen that this year. Harvey, the big flooding mess. Irma, all the mess in the Keys from the storm surge. Obviously, what we saw with Maria in Puerto Rico. This was a smaller storm, certainly not nearly as strong. That said, any kind of a hurricane, a Cat 1 hurricane, is going to cause some damage. And right here along the Central Gulf, all of that water, the storm surge, pulls in, especially in towards Mobile Bay, a very susceptible area to it. And that's why we're seeing the flooding like we just saw where Rick is. But Mobile Bay getting this all along over towards Pascagoula and Biloxi, even over towards the panhandle of Florida. Now the center of the storm has moved onshore. Now we have a rain event. We still have the wind. Winds are at 70 miles an hour sustained. That will weaken rapidly throughout the day today because now it's over land. The friction just makes it weaken very quickly, and the loss of water source. However, we're also going to watch a threat for tornadoes. We do have a tornado watch that's in effect until 10 o'clock this morning, and you'll notice this rain is going to pull up all throughout parts of the Appalachians, and that's, I think, where we're going to see also some pretty significant flooding just because of the mountainous terrain. That water will run off into the creeks and the streams and potentially cause some flooding there. So more ahead still yet today, guys, from Nate.
Okay, Rick Reichmuth.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
It's Rich Myth.
Now, obviously, on a serious note, we've been trying to get more details about what really happened in Las Vegas. Getting an idea of the motive has been a big mystery, but we're starting to get some of the clues about what was on that note in his hotel room. And that might unlock some of this in terms of what was going on inside his mind.
Yeah, there's an interview on 60 Minutes where you have some of the first officers that entered that hotel room. They broke into it. Brave guys, incredible guys. And to hear it from their perspective, it's eerie, it's chilling. They were right where the action was. They saw him dead on the ground. And as you said, Ed, they found this handwritten note on the bedside table that it looked like he had put all the calculations in to make sure that he got as close as he could or as accurate as he could to kill as many people
in terms
as
of
possible.
Exactly. And all of that. And,
which is interesting. He's going to do that as a shooter. You know, it makes sense. He's sort of a, you know, this guy he's kind of a Rain Man, if you will. Clearly, he does a lot of things with numbers and so on and so forth. But as a shooter, you have those calculations. But if you have a bump stock on there, you might as well throw them in the garbage because you're completely inaccurate.
Threw it all off. And
I don't think it's been reported that he used the bump stocks. I'm not sure about that. But here's what...
Hearing from the gunfire, I'd be quite surprised if it wasn't.
If it wasn't. Yeah, you might be right about that. Here's what Officer David Newton said about what was on that note. He said, I could see it. He had handwritten the distance, the elevation he was on, the drop of what his bullet was going to be for the crowd. So he had that written down and figured out so he would know where to shoot to hit his targets from there. He was on the 32nd floor of that hotel.
So it shows it was premeditated, clearly. Suicide note, at least not yet. Maybe, you know, he has other residences. They're obviously combing through that, but that note doesn't give an idea of the motive. Doesn't say, I'm going to kill myself. He wanted to get out. He wanted to try to get out alive, as we've seen from other evidence. Last night on Saturday Night Live, on one hand, there's this wonderful tribute, you know, for
Jason
all
Aldean,
the victims of
nice
Jason Aldean, and at the same time, providing a tribute to Tom Petty, who just passed.
Which is...
Yeah.
Vinelli there. So he opened up, I believe, Saturday Night Live last night. And he was on the stage that night when the shooting happened, and he gave an emotional tribute there. But then, as you mentioned, it goes to politics, as it always does on SNL.
Instead of Weekend Update being about jokes, you know, and obviously not about Vegas, find some other topics. They usually go after President Trump. Find something new. Go, you know, actually be funny. But instead, it becomes a rant on gun control. Watch.
The investigation into the tragedy in Las Vegas this week has sparked a larger debate in America between people who want common sense gun control and who are wrong. The guy had 47 guns. No one should own 47 of anything. If you own 47 cats, you are not a responsible pet owner. You're a crazy cat lady.
Why is it so hard to get gun control in this country? These delicate snowflakes that we can't just tell, no, you're not allowed to have 40 guns anymore, Earl. From now on, you can have one gun, max, and 6 bullets. If you can't hit what you're shooting with 6 bullets, then you don't need to be shooting at it. Learn karate or use your words. I'm sick of this narrative that Americans just love guns so much. It's not true.
Interesting, jumping right.
I would love your take, because you are a member of the NRA. You're a gun owner. How do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I'd like them to be funny. I'd like them to be funny, but I don't find that funny. I'm being told that I can't have X number of anything. Well, what's the right number then? So can we have 6? Can we have 9? Or can we have 1 with 6 bullets, as he suggested?
How many people own 34, 37, you name it, guns? How many people own a bump stock?
Not many. Not many at all. But it's the slippery slope. You start saying you can't have, okay, you can have 12. Okay, you can have 6. And you're starting to limit it's an amendment.
You had Nancy Pelosi, the House Democratic leader, this week saying, I want a slippery slope. Right. I want to deal with bump stocks and then have that lead to broader gun control. You had Bret Stephens, columnist in the New York Times, saying, let's scrap the Second Amendment.
Yeah, that's how far. That's where it goes. I like Jason Aldean's his comments. Unity, bring it together, and let's heal.
I agree. We need more of Jason Aldean.
Yes.
What do you guys think? Do you think that Weekend Update was that funny? Do you like what they said? Do you disagree? Do you agree with Dean Cain? Email us at friends@foxnews.com. Want to hear from you. But we do have some other headlines I want to bring you this morning. Vice President Mike Pence visiting Las Vegas nearly a week after that deadly shooting. The vice president paying his respects to the victims and honoring the heroes, assuring a packed City Hall that all Americans are Vegas strong.
We find comfort in the knowledge that we are united as one nation, as one people, with one voice. United in our grief, united in our support for those who have suffered, and united in our resolve to end such evil in our time.
The vice president made his final stop at a memorial where the shooting happened, placing a white rose on every cross, as you can see right there. And London is still on edge after a man drives his car into a crowd at a major tourist stop. Metropolitan still looking for witnesses at this hour. At least 11 people were injured near the City Natural History Museum. The driver detained at the scene and was later arrested. Police say the incident was not terror-related and is being treated as a traffic collision. None of the injuries, luckily, were life-threatening. Also, this morning, President Trump expected to sign an executive order next week, making it easier for people to buy health insurance. The move aimed at rolling back regulations put in place by former President Barack Obama. The order will direct the departments of HHS, Labor, and Treasury to make it easier for people to group together and buy insurance through association health plans. It will broaden instructions for the agencies to explore ways to loosen regulations and possibly lower premiums. And I know the boys will love this one. The MLB playoffs are heating up. The Dodgers pushing the Arizona Diamondbacks to the brink, winning 8-5 to take 2-game lead. And in Washington, 8th-inning home runs from Bryce Harper and Ryan Zimmerman lift the Washington Nationals, my team, over the Chicago Cubs in a
tie it here in the 8th and threaten to take the lead. In the air to right field. Zobrist goes back at the track.
Oh, the 6-3 win ties the series at 1-1 as it moves on now to Chicago.
Heating up.
It is. We all love that, though.
We do.
Our teams are winning. I'm happy. So the Dodgers are winning. I'm good. And you're
How
happy.
You feeling, Ed?
I need the Yankees to win tonight.
Okay.
All right, we got more news coming up.
All right, coming up, this Hollywood actor, not this one, says that he is retiring because he's being blacklisted for being a conservative.
And President Trump says only one thing will work: North Korea. What could that be? Is it military action?
But first, Jason Aldean performing I Won't Back Down. There it is.
So good. President Trump issuing a new warning to North Korea last night, tweeting this: presidents and their administrations have been talking to North Korea for 25 years. Agreements made and massive amounts of money paid hasn't worked. Agreements violated before the ink was dry, making fools of U.S. negotiators. Sorry, but only one thing will work.
Well, here to weigh in, former Buck Sexton, not Bucks, just Buck Sexton.
It's a great name, isn't it?
It is a great name.
I answer to either. So.
Well, what do you think? What do you think the president means with that? There's only one way to answer this. Is it?
I think President Trump is trying to establish that the old way of doing things is no longer valid, and that he has resolve in finishing off this issue one way or another. He's trying to off-balance the Kim regime. He's trying to make sure they understand that the previous method here, the previous status quo, was that we would tell them, look, you need to do this. They wouldn't do it. And then we'd come to some kind of an agreement. We'd give them stuff, and then they would break the agreement. And that has happened time and time again. President Trump is just saying, look, that's no longer acceptable, and all options are on the table. Another part of this is that a possible military option is not just a talking point when it comes to President Trump, and he wants that to be known.
And the last 25 years, as the president saying, they have let North Korea get away with this. And now he's saying we need some real tough talk. How does North Korea, how do you think, you're an expert on this, How are they going to respond? How are they responding?
Well, you have a couple of days coming up here that North Korea may be looking to as an opportunity to make a point. Obviously, internal propaganda for the Kim regime is absolutely essential. You have, in a couple of days, the establishment, the anniversary of the establishment of the Korean Workers' Party. You also have the anniversary of their first nuclear test some years ago. Some opportunities here from the Kim regime's perspective to do something big as a show of defiance, and also in keeping with their we have this history, this progression, and that's going to be their way of showing that they will not back down to the Trump administration if, in fact, they go ahead with some kind of attack.
They're going to certainly. I mean, they've been known at those anniversaries and those big moments to show big, shows of strength, et cetera. I would expect they're going to do something big, and then the president's going to be forced to respond.
I know. At what point? What is that point? When does the president say, okay, now we are taking action?
Well, if there were to be anything that would cross beyond what we've already seen, I think we don't have a playbook. It's going to be up to the president as commander-in-chief to respond to that specific incident. When you have the Kim regime saying things like they may test a nuclear device in the atmosphere over the Pacific Ocean, which they have specifically mentioned, never mind, if they were to attack Guam, Japan, or an ally or U.S. territory, clearly there would be an overwhelming military response. And by the way, that's not just President Trump. You've also had